Hey, what's up guys? No more boxes, I finally moved houses, and now I can continue the Learn Web Development series. Right now I want to cover CSS. So we've covered HTML elements and we've covered setting up VS Code. So let's focus on how we can actually style the elements we created. So the first thing I want to do is make a new folder called CSS Basics. Then I'm going to cd into there. Then I'm going to open it in VS Code. And then I'm going to make a file called index.html. And then we can use Emmet to autocomplete a HTML5 template for us. So HTML5, press tab, and we can save this. And if we press Command Shift P or Control Shift P, and we can type live server and open with live server. There we go. And now we have our page running with live server, but we don't have anything within the body, so we don't see anything. Let's make a div element there. And inside of that div element, we'll write box. So we're going to make this a box. So the first thing we do is, once we've made the div element, we give it a class name of my box. So in order to apply styling to this, we're going to create style tags within the head. And then we're going to say dot my box. And now it's going to target the styling for any element which has the class myBox applied. So we can add a border. So there's a CSS property called border, and that CSS property takes a width of the border, so 5 pixels, the type of border, in this case we want a solid border, and the color. Let's just make it a black border. And save it, and there we go. So we can see that the div spans the whole width of the web page. We can size it in and out. We can also see something else here. There's a gap between the border and the body of the page. So in order to get rid of that gap, we can actually style the body itself. So in order to style a tag, we go, just write the tag name, there's no period, and then we can say margin 0. And then margin will get rid of that gap between the body. So now we have our box with no margin. But if we wanted to add more margin to our box, we could actually add it within the box. So we can say margin 10 pixels. And what margin does is it just adds a space outside of the box. So you just imagine that this border is our element, but we can still style outside of it. If we wanted to add space within the box, we'll add something called padding. So padding 10 pixels. And then we can see that now there's a gap within the box. So I hope that makes sense. We can also add padding specifically to a direction. So we can say padding left, and now it will only add padding here. So we can also change the background color of the box. So we can say background color, and we can just use one of the preset colors. So let's make it chartreuse. I don't know what that is. Save it, and it's this color. But if you're using VS Code, what you can also do is just hover over the color and change it to something else. So let's make it this blue and save. And now we can see that it's not the color name, but instead it's actually using a function, and the function is RGB. And what it does is it takes three integers, each to the value of 255. And the first one is the amount of red, the amount of green, and then it's the amount of blue. And then it will make a color. So we can see we have the most blue, so the background is more, it's mainly blue. If we can also, let's make a heading here, H1, and we can say my heading. And let's style this heading a bit. So what we can do is, we can also style based on IDs, though you don't want to do this in production. You actually never want to style based on IDs, but you can, and I'll show you something. So we could say heading, and then instead of using the dot syntax, we'll use the pound sign, and then say heading, and then we can make the font size a certain size. Let's make it Let's make it huge. Let's make it 70 pixels. Cool. But now, if we also added a class and called the class heading, and then came here and styled the class with the font size and made this really small. Let's make this 7 pixels. You'll see styling the ID overrides styling the class. And that's because the ID has a higher specificity than the class does, because classes are more general. So if we took away this ID, we can see that now the class heading is applied. So let's make this big again. Let's make this 70 pixels. And I want to show you something else. So we can also say, we can add another class here. So let's add another class called underline. And we can make underline text. So there's something called text decoration, and it has a property underline. And with this, we'll see that the heading will be underlined. But if in heading, we can say that text decoration is equal to none, so don't underline it, we can see that underline is still applied. But if we put underline above heading, it will go away. That's because the last class to be evaluated within the style sheet is the one that takes preference. So let's take away this and let's keep the heading underlined, and let's change the font family. So in the heading, we can go here and we can make the font family. We can use one of the preset ones in VS Code. I'm going to go with Franklin Gothic Medium. So we can see the font has changed, but we can see that we've also used a few fonts. So what happens here is the most specific font that we want to use is Franklin Gothic Medium. Then if that doesn't exist on the user's computer, let's try use Arial Narrow. If Arial Narrow doesn't exist, then let's try and use Arial. If Arial doesn't exist, then you know what, let's use any sans serif font. These are what's called fallbacks. So before we end, I also want to center this heading text. So we can go here, we can go text align, center. And that will center the text within its container. We can also, in my box, add a specific width. So we can say width 100 pixels, and it decreases the width of the box. We could also use a percentage here. We could say width 10%, 40%, and it changes as a percentage. So now it will scale with the page. Do something like this. We can make height. We can make this 100 pixels. And now this is going to stay static. So no matter the size of the page, this will remain 100 pixels. So that's pretty much how CSS works. It actually becomes just a lot of understanding what properties you have to play with and how the properties affect each other. So the last thing I want to do before we finish up is I want to show you how you can target an element underneath another element. So how a parent can target a child. So let's say we have a p tag, and inside that p tag we have let's say another p tag. No, let's actually do this. So let's say we have a div tag, and inside of that div we have another p tag, and we can call this class, let's call this article. So we can make a style, we can style article here. But if we only want to target the text, I'm just going to add some lorem ipsum here. So in Visual Studio Code, you can just write lorem tab and it'll just give you a whole bunch of dummy text here. So if we want to target only the p tag, we can actually just go here and write p, and we can say font family is equal, let's make this monospace. And now we're targeting all p tags within the article tag. So if we were to write a p tag here with lorem ipsum, it wouldn't be affected. The other thing I want to say is, if we were to move this font family into the body, it's going to affect all the font within that page because everything falls under body. So it basically rolls down until it changes. So if we were to comment out this monospace, there it changes the font family to this font family. And if we were to comment out this, it changes it to the default font of the browser. I think that's enough for now. I think the next thing we need to do is let's get onto actually styling a web page. But that's pretty much how CSS works and how you can add CSS to a web page and play around using Live Server. I hope you found this useful. Please DM me or comment on this video, like this video, and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to blow up and become the next Rihanna. Cheers.